Back with the Fox News alert. We are now 36 hours into the search for Robert Card, the man accused of killing 18 people at a bar and bowling alley in Maine. As you know, he is considered to be armed and dangerous. There he is going into the bowling alley. The FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, and Coast Guard joining other agencies in the manhunt. And now a Border Patrol source is telling Fox News that elite Border Patrol agents from the BORTAC unit will be helping in the search as well. BORTAC helped with several high-profile cases far from the border, including the capture of escaped murderer Daniel Cavalcante just last month in Pennsylvania. They also helped down in Uvalde. Let's talk to Paul Mauro, attorney and retired New York City Police Department inspector, and Dr. Darrin Porcher, a former New York City Police Department lieutenant and U.S. Army vet as well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Steve.
In that list of law enforcement, it is curious that they called in the Coast Guard, Paul.
Yeah, so I think what that goes to is the fact that there is this river, the Androscoggin River, that runs throughout the area that this all occurred in, and that's a big, long river, and at both ends, it's problematic for law enforcement. It goes into other states. It also empties into the ocean.
Right.
We know he had boats, at least one, reportedly two. Now the Coast Guard's deployed, so what does that tell us? Very good chance at least one of those boats is missing, and they're starting to accept the idea that he might have got on a boat. The car that was abandoned was found by a boat ramp,
right,
not by his house, halfway to his house. It argues he got out of the car. There's a boat ramp there. He could be on that river.
And Dr. Porcher, it sounds like, according to sources up there, it sounds like he left a gun, we don't know if it's the gun, in that Subaru Outback.
Yes, there was a weapon that was recovered, but we also have to take in consideration, because of his marksmanship, he probably had another weapon. He's on the land. He had an exit strategy. He didn't intend to stick around to engage in suicide by cop or commit suicide. He wanted to get out of there. So I genuinely believe that this is a person that's armed and dangerous and presents a tremendous level of danger to us as the public. Therefore, it's necessary for us to take him into custody as quick as possible. And I'm thankful that we have all of these resources that are conjoining to do this.
Yeah, and there is also a report that from ABC, Paul, that apparently when they searched the house, they found a suicide note addressed to his son, which would suggest that he was trying to kill. He knew he would be killed, and that's why his face was uncovered. Or it's one of those things like, okay, I killed myself. Don't look for me.
Right. And, as Darrin says, he seems to have had an exit strategy. So you have to admit that possibility here, that all of this is a ploy, right? And, with all of the dogs and the resources that were poured into this quite quickly after the event, if he was dead nearby, my gut tells me that they would have located him. If I had a bet, I'm not sure, obviously, but under the facts that we have, I think he is an outdoorsman. He has all these survival skills. He's got the military skills. I think he's likely alive, and here's one of the reasons that I'm really troubled by that. The scope that he bought, reportedly, according to some interviews, $2,000 scope that's mounted on that gun. You see it in the video stills. It's a thermal imaging scope. What does that mean? He can see in the same way the police are using thermal imagery to try to find him at night. He can see them. He has the same tech the cops have. It's very good, and it's very dangerous at night.
And Dr. Porcher, he grew up in that area. The family's got hundreds of acres around there. He knows the forests like the back of his hand, and they're very thick, which, traditional thermal imaging from a chopper might have a problem finding somebody, particularly if he's dead. They're not going to find a cold body.
Right.
Yeah, when you look at a landscape such as this, a drone technology would be the best course of resource to find this person, because thousands of acres is very challenging for police officers on foot. However, we fly these drones that have thermal imaging as well as infrared. And granted, he knows the terrain, but the local law enforcement should be at the forefront, because the local law enforcement is going to understand the terrain better than the state troopers or any other federal law enforcement agencies. It's a very arduous task, and I'm confident that he will be taken into custody soon. However, it really remains the million-dollar question as to where he is.
Absolutely. And Paul, speaking at the federal level, according to the Maine State Bureau of Investigation, this guy was categorized as federal firearms disqualified status. They did not detail why he can't buy a gun. It's presumed to perhaps be related to that incident at West Point early in the summer. But he's not on the yellow flag list for the people of Maine, which is, it's like the feds say you can't have a gun, and the state doesn't know whether or not he did.
Yeah, so, this goes to the red flag, yellow flag law. The yellow flag law is unique in Maine across the country, and what the distinction is that only law enforcement can refer you for the due process to get essentially your Second Amendment right taken away. You can't have the guns, and you have to get treatment. Red flag laws, family can do it as well. The Maine law was considered to be something that was really working. They got about 60 instances of it. They have a teledoc involved so you can do it remotely. They felt like it was going to be the model for the rest of the country. I think that's out the window. I think that's where we're going relative to this event because it very clearly imports a lot of these red flag, yellow flag issues. And I think it's a more productive way to look at this. Rather than having a Second Amendment constitutional argument, which never gets anywhere, we don't progress on it, coming at it from the mental health side and trying to standardize some of the procedures and protocols for saying this is what you need, this is the due process, there is a limit on the Second Amendment, and we're going to go through the courts to do it. That could be a better takeaway than having the same old argument.
You got to figure Maine is looking at their laws. They're probably going to change something.
Sure.
Doctor, Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
All right.